Thanks very much for tuning in or opening the file even. Conversation about the most recent Stoke COP on August the 12th, joined by Lee Dale and Elena Cassili, who are both working with Voices at present. My name's Steve Freeman. I'm the nominal chair of Stoke COP. So we're just going to have a wee catch up on what our impressions were of the COP on prison release and how that's going to affect practice maybe, and what our best hopes are for the future. So, Lena, you had a lovely brief presentation about someone you're working with. So I've got to say thanks very much for that. Presentations make all the difference. What did you notice about the COP? What kind of struck you about the time we had together?
I suppose it's been a long time between COPs for me, and I must admit I really enjoyed the COP that I attended. I suppose I think the Zoom format works really, really well for the amount of people that attended. So I was surprised how well that worked, especially with the little chat section that worked really well. But one thing that really struck me was how everyone who participated or attended the COP were genuine. They really wanted to be there. And all the stakeholders present had a commonality about wanting to improve prison release in some way, shape or form. And it was genuine. People were really wanted to share ideas, share practices, make suggestions. And I suppose for me, it really sort of highlighted partnership working, really. It really sort of, I don't know, it felt really genuine. It felt true, I suppose.
Yeah. And Lee, what did you notice? What were you struck by?
Straight out of the bat, it was the volume of people attending, people's commitment. That joint validating experience which we always get in terms of people gaining awareness of other people in other job roles from other services. So I think that's what immediately struck me about the COP.
I couldn't get over the diversity of the professionals who were in attendance. That really, and from different sectors. It wasn't just the people with offending or, like the criminal justice or the prison relief or, the legal system. It was sort of housing services and social care. It was very, very broad. And that's what I was really impressed by it, really, by the amount of the diversity of stakeholders present. I
think another thing that really struck me is when the conversation turned around when somebody spoke about the importance of informal as well as formal relationships across services, and we explored that, and I think it was very much of an eye-opener when we were told about concern of a person leaving that job role and not knowing what would happen to those networks. It's something about the power of networking and all the networks we create, the informal networks we create as much as the formal networks. And for me, there's a piece of work in that alone that I'm looking at the moment. That just really opened my eyes up to a few things, and I'm really focused on that at the moment.
And I wonder, Lee, whether the COP is a good forum to start developing some of those networks. So if I was new to health and social care in Stoke and somebody took me along to a COP, I'd be mind blown. The people that the welcome and the fact that everyone has a voice. And I know that's feedback we've had in the past from students who've been along, so they're maybe at Voices for 2 or 3 months, and they've arrived, been welcomed, been listened to, and found out things that they've never even touched in the previous experience. So I wonder whether the COP might be part of that introduction to the formal and informal infrastructure.
Yeah, a good point.
I think the thing, kind of echoing what you both just said, for me, it was by far and away the most intense COP I've ever been to. And I think that comes back to Lena's idea of, it's the diversity and the passion and the honesty that was there. And that just listening to it without even trying to take part, just listening to it was incredibly intense.
It was really intense, and straight away after the COP, and mention no names because obviously we don't do that. Straight away over the next 24 hours, I was receiving from members resources and links and updates, and I've never known it be that responsive after a COP. It was literally the very next day, bang, 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 I get an email after email, which was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So people were that keen to continue the conversation the very next day and to get these resources over for us to get out through the summary. So that was another thing I noticed.
Wow.
And I think it's been, we've got to acknowledge that those people that weren't there by chance, there's been a lot of work in, going on between COPs to invite people, encourage them, explain what it's about. When we're meeting in, say, a year's time, what will have been the impact for people leaving prison of this this series of meetings? What would you hope for, or what do you think you'll be noticing?
I suppose from my perspective, I would like to have more positive prison releases, in terms of that the person who's being released from prison actually has an address on the day of prison release, not the day of they've been released, but a couple of weeks beforehand. And so they know that, so they've actually, that stress of them not knowing where they're going to sleep has been totally eliminated. I love the idea. I've had a few positive prison releases, but I had one that was really fabulous a couple of years ago, where the service actually went to the prison a couple of times and met with the customer. So there was a relationship building already. And so when I collected the person, took him to their new accommodation, he was known to the service, he was known to the manager, because they actually went there to develop the rapport. So that's what I would really sort of have, that work done while the person's in prison, in terms of the new, if they're housed, who their support worker may be from the service, and also not to have all their appointments on the one day. To spread them out on 2 to 3 days. For me, that would be ideal. Or on day of release, all the appointments are happening in one location. Either spread them out or put them in all at one spot. Just something has to change, because having 4 appointments in one day plus doing a benefit claim doesn't work.
And the interesting thing is, all of those things are in place in some prisons here, there, and across the place. So somebody mentioned a hub approach. Well, that's already happening. Initiatives like Through the Gate, resettlement workers who work with people who've been in for more than a couple of weeks. They get the last couple of weeks to work with them, and people with short sentences, 2 weeks, 10 days, they still work with them. So what about yourself, Lee? 6, 12 months, how are things going to be different?
I think with what Ali said there, I think what you were talking about there is it might not be the same service, but Steve just touched on Through the Gate. And I've been reading a lot about some of the Through the Gate schemes at some of the jails. What I would like there to be is a focus on the successful ones and maybe duplication in terms of peers, forming relationships in prisons, meeting people at the gate. And I think in the resources that I've just sent out with somebody in the chat notes, was it the Departure Lounge, Steve, at Lincoln? So there they've got some amazing things going on in terms of issuing people mobile phones, so on and so forth. So yeah, maybe this idea of this Departure Lounge, stroke hub, stroke Through the Gate, whatever you want to name it. I think, yeah, in that amount of time, I would love to see a good focus on that and enhancement of those services.
Yeah. And the idea of resettlement plans written while with the person, reflecting their needs whilst they're still in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, who'd have thought it? So I think, I wonder whether that's another thing to look at for future meetings in this series is, you know, try and get someone who's working in a successful Through the Gate to give us a short presentation.
Yeah, I agree.
That'd be great, actually.
Yeah. Cool. There's another plan. So I'm sure it's been a lovely chat. I'm sure people will be losing the thread by now and ready for a brew. So I'd just like to say thanks very much to you both for your contributions to the COP and to this meeting of minds. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the next COP on September the 9th.